I think the biggest thing that I took away from this video lecture was the importance of getting to the actual root of the problem, rather than just coming up and executing the first solution that comes up in your mind. And one of the examples that you gave in your video is something that I actually noticed real life in my internship this summer. I was talking to someone on the design team, and they were saying how they usually don't really take into consideration when someone comes up to them and say, like, I want this feature designed this way. They try to stop them right there in their tracks and say, okay, what's the issue? What's the problem? And then from there, they can come up with different ideas of how to execute said thing. And so I think that's something that's really, really impactful, is just learning the actual problem, and then from then on, just iterating on different solutions and how you can solve that problem. And another thing that really resonated with me from your video is the importance of having different perspectives on your software team. That's something that I've really thought about for the longest time, is that I usually surround myself with people who are like-minded and who believe the same like political thoughts of me, the same like religious beliefs as me. And so I tend to put myself in a bubble, and I feel like if you're creating a product that's supposed to be impactful and really reach across a lot of other different groups of people, then you want to make sure that those groups of people are representative in your team that's building the product. One problem that I found myself getting frustrated a lot in kind of my earlier years of college was finding people who are really knowledgeable about fields that I wanted to go into, whether that be design or computer science, just because I didn't really have anyone growing up who were in the industries that I wanted to pursue. And so I found it difficult to really connect with people and professionals in that industry to really learn as much as I can and really learn if it's the best route for me. I know that this is a problem just because there's a lot of lack of representation in the field of technology. There's not a lot of racial or even gender diversity in the tech industry, and so I feel like there's a real barrier to getting minorities or women really in that industry, just because they don't really see anyone else in there, or they don't see themselves represented. And I think this is a problem that needs to be solved, because like you said earlier, in order to create really impactful products, you have to make sure that your team is very diverse and that you have a diverse set of voices and worldviews in there. And if there's a lack of minorities and women that are going into technology, then they're not gonna have the seat at the table to really give their voice and make the product the best as it can be. And yeah, I think it should be solved, and it needs to be solved, because as technology progresses, I feel like we're at a point in time where what we do now can really impact the future. And if we're making sure, we have to make sure that we're being represented in order to, all people groups are being represented in order to make the future of technology as inclusive as possible. An example of an app that's solving a real problem, I feel like, is Lyft or Uber. Uber was the first one, actually. And so, I mean, I feel like finding rides and taxis were not always the easiest thing to come about, and Uber and Lyft really revolutionized ride sharing. An app that doesn't really solve a real problem, I feel like, is not I don't have a specific app in mind, but just general photo editing apps. I know there's a specific app that just adds one filter to all the photos, and there's really no customization in that. And I feel like there's no real problem that it solves. So it's just purely aesthetic.